In this lesson, we're going to discuss the properties of parallelograms, and we're going to use our knowledge of the properties to solve problems involving angles and the side lengths. So let's get into the lesson. Let's take a look at these properties of parallelograms using this figure here. First property is the opposite sides are parallel. So I'm just going to draw some parallel marks here. AC is parallel to BD, and AB and CD are parallel. Opposite sides are congruent, so draw some congruence marks here. AC is congruent to BD, and AB is congruent to CD. Next, opposite angles are congruent, so angles C and B are opposite, so they are congruent. So drawing these congruent arc marks here. All right, as well as angle A and angle D are congruent. Next, consecutive angles are supplementary. Remember, supplementary means that they equal 180 degrees. So my supplementary angles here are B and D. So we can say that angle B and D equals 180 degrees. Also angles A and C equals 180. Also angles A and B is equal to 180, and angle C and D is equal to 180 degrees. So just to put it simply, on a parallelogram, the consecutive angles share a side because they are on the inside of the transversal. So these are my four pairs of consecutive angles. They are supplementary, meaning they equal 180 degrees. All right. And last, we have diagonals bisect each other. So my diagonals are AD and CB. They bisect each other, meaning they cut each other in half equally. So we could say that this portion here, these two segments are congruent, as well as these two. Let me put a letter here. Let's call this E in the center. So we could say that AE and ED are congruent, and CE and EB are congruent. So these are our properties of parallelograms. So we have our first two examples here. The first one I'm going to do with you, and I would like for you to try the second one on your own. And we want to find the given lengths of the sides and the angle measurements. But one thing I like to do is just go ahead and plug in what I know. So here, if AB is 15, I know that BC will also be 15 because opposite sides are congruent. If BC is 8, AD will also be 8. If angle D is 68, angle B will also be 68 because opposite sides are congruent. And I could also find angles A and C because they are consecutive with angles B and D. And so meaning these two, so B and C will equal 180. So I'm simply going to subtract 180 or subtract 180 minus 68. And so that would give me 112. So C would be 112 degrees, as well as angle A, because they're opposite angles. So I have all the information I think I need for this problem. So now I just have to fill it in. AD is 8. DC is 15. Angle A is 112. Angle B is 68. Put my degree symbol here. And angle C is 112. All right. So I've done the first problem for you. I would like for you to pause the video and try the second problem on your own. So go ahead and pause and try this one on your own. All right, so here's the answer to example 2. Go ahead and check your work. Hopefully you got it correct. Maybe pause the video while you check your work. So we have an example here of another parallelogram, but we're given diagonals and we want to find a missing measure. And so like I did before, I want to go ahead and just label everything that I know. Just makes it easier. Okay, since RU is 18, ST will also be 18 because opposite sides are congruent. Since RS is 27, UT will also be 27. Again, opposite sides are congruent. And it tells us that RT is 30, so we're going to actually use that in a minute. Since I have the diagonals here, US and RT, we know that they bisect each other, so that would make RV and VT congruent, as well as UV and VS congruent. So if I know that UV is 7, VS is also 7. And since RT is 30, so the entire length of this diagonal is 30, each side will have to be 15. So just labeling what I know. So now let's see if we can answer these measures here. So UT is 27, same length as RS. ST is 18, it's the same length as RU. VS is 7 because it is congruent to UV, because again the diagonals bisect each other. And VT is 15 because if RT is 30, that will make RV and VS 15 each, because that will equal 30. Let's take a look at this example here. It says if TV is 74, so let's go ahead and just label that. TV, the entire length here is 74, and WV is 4x plus 1. So right here, that would be 4x plus 1. Let me just make it a little neater here. I'm just going to put it like this. So 4x plus 1. Solve for x. And so let's look at this parallelogram. So we're given information about the diagonals, or we're given the diagonals. And what do we know about the diagonals of a parallelogram? The diagonals bisect each other, meaning they cut each other in half. And so we could set up an equation to find x. And so if I know that the entire length of TV is 74, but half of it is 4x plus 1, I could set up the equation 2 times 4x plus 1 equals 74, because if WV is 4x plus 1, then TW is also 4x plus 1 because they are congruent. So I could either add 4x plus 1 plus 4x plus 1, or I could multiply it by 2, which is the same thing, and set it equal to 74 because the entire length is 74. All right, so I could do this and get 8x plus 2 is equal to 74, or if I just write it over here, I could do 4x plus 1 plus 4x plus 1 is equal to 74 because they are congruent. If I add my like terms, I get 8x plus 2. So same thing. All right. So I'm just left with this two-step equation. Subtracting 2, 8x equals 72, dividing by 8. One-step equation, x is 9. And so I've solved this problem here. X equals 9. Let's try this one. It says find a measure of angle B. And so what do we know about the angle measures? Opposite angles are congruent, and so angles A and C are opposite angles. All right, so they are congruent. So they are equal, so I could set up an equation. 4x plus 11 is equal to 6x minus 15, because again, A and C are opposite angles, so they are congruent or they are equal. So I could set these two expressions equal to solve for x. So let's do that. I'm subtracting 4x because I don't like to deal with negatives. So it's just easier when you're not dealing with negatives. I could have subtracted 6x first, but then I would have had negative 2x, but you get the same thing. So I'm just solving this equation using my algebra skills. Now I'm left with a two-step equation. Add 15, and that leaves me with 26, right? Equals 2x, dividing by 2, x is 13. Now I have not answered what the question is asking. I found that x is 13, but we want to find a measure of angle B. So in order to do that, I need to find one of these angles here. and then find the supplement because they're supplementary, because they're consecutive. So I'm going to actually plug it into the measure of angle C. So if I plug it in here, 4 times 13 plus 11, so 4 times 13 plus 11, that gives me 63. So angle C is 63. And if angle C is 63, B and C are supplementary because they are consecutive angles. All right. So B and C are consecutive, C and D are consecutive, D and A are consecutive, and B and A are consecutive as well. So I could subtract from 180 because consecutive angles are supplementary. So 180 minus 63 gives me 117. So the measure of angle B is 117 degrees. All right, so let's take a look at this last example that I'm going to show you, and then I have 2 more that I would like for you to try on your own. So here it says the measure of angle KLH is 134 degrees. So let's label that. This angle here is 134 degrees. We want to solve for x. So let's see what we're given. We're given angle JHK and angle LKH. So these 2 angles here, all right? This is 25, this is 4x plus 9. And so what I could do, I could set up an equation, but before I do that, I could see that LKH is actually 25 degrees as well, because these 2 angles are alternate interior angles, because HK would be considered a transversal because it is intersecting JK and HL. So these are alternate interior angles here and here, so they are congruent. So now I can use my knowledge of consecutive angles. Consecutive angles are supplementary, so K angles, K and L are supplementary, or JKL and KLH. So these 2 here, let me label them, putting it in purple. So these 2 angles are supplementary, right, because they're consecutive, so they equal 180. So I could set up an equation here. I could do 4x plus 9, which is this piece here, plus 25, which is this piece here, plus 134, this angle at the bottom here, is all equal to 180 degrees. And I could just solve this equation for x. My like terms, 4x, I don't have any other like terms here, so I'm just going to bring down my 4x. 9 plus 25 plus 134, let's see, that is equal to 168, equals 180. Just solving this 2-step equation, subtracting 168, 4x equals 12. Dividing by 4, x is 3. So I've solved this equation for x, so x is equal to 3. I have these last 2 examples I would like for you to try on your own, so go ahead and pause the video and try these 2 examples on your own. Alright, so the answers here are 56 degrees for the first one and 61 degrees for the second one. Hopefully you got them correct. If not, maybe pause the video and analyze my work a bit. The rationale that was used for the first one here is that consecutive angles equal 180, so we were able to set up that equation there. And on the second one here, opposite sides are parallel, so BD is a transversal, which is a line that crosses the 2 other lines, and so that would make angles ADB and angle CBD alternate interior angles, meaning they are congruent. So I could set up that equation there to solve for x and plug it back in. So analyze my work, pause the video if you did not get it correct, but if you got it correct, great job. We reached the end of our lesson. I want to thank you for learning with me. Some related videos are proving parallelograms on a coordinate grid, properties of rectangles, as well as area of regular polygons. If you haven't already, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And once again, I want to thank you for learning with me.